Welcome back to Cinema Flicks Music Picks. I'm Davey, your host with the most, the beast with the least. Least I can do today is say howdy to Mr. Grant Arthur. Grant, how are you today?
Good, Davey. How are you doing?
Yeah, can't complain.
Yeah,
A
well, there
long
you
video
go.
I did. So thank you very much for joining me. Grant, you are, of course, as you're wearing the t-shirt, Grant's Rock
I am.
Warehouse is
I am.
the destination, not the vinyl destination, but can I remind you, Grant, that as you pointed out in my last bit, I do enjoy my cheap prop. So you're now on air. Okay, this was
I
two
I
pounds.
appreciate that.
This cost £2, Grant. So see if I press it fast, it does this.
It's all about production and putting money into production.
Yep, two
You know,
pounds. So there we go. There's your production. I'm glad you all enjoyed that part of the video.
I love it.
So, Grant,
Yes, sir.
you have been on YouTube for a good long while yourself,
Well, probably since 3 months.
as in a YouTube contributor rather than.
Oh, well, that's probably been. It was a year ago, April. That's when I first started to get on the Contrarians.
Was it being on the Contrarians that inspired you to start making or want to make your own videos?
Yeah, the whole goal wasn't for me to start making videos. The problem is on the Contrarians, you would contribute the ideas for topics. And I had so many ideas for topics that the Contrarians, you can only do so much. So
Mhm.
I just decided, well, why not? And it just is just exploded from there because there's so many different topics I could talk about, or you could talk about, or we can all
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
So I just figured, why not do it?
and
But
and
that was not my original goal when I got on the Contrarians. It was just to have an outlet to talk music with people. There
yeah,
was really no outlet here other than to go up to the record store and talk to
yeah.
people. But I don't know. That was just the contrarian thing. I just figured, gosh, this is great. And when I joined the Patreon part of the Contrarians,
Hmm.
Marco and Martin had just started that whole I guess you're going to call it a plus, or what do you want to call it? A Patreon.
Yeah, the more community aspect of it rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they just opened that up when I joined. So I just hit it right at the beginning and
yeah,
I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So
yeah. Once you had been on a few, did you then think, yeah, do you know what? There are videos that I'd like to make that I just don't see
no, it took
myself.
a year.
Yeah. So was it you taking a year, or did you just think, do you know what? I've got more to talk about than it's Martin and Marco's place. So obviously they set
Mhm.
subjects. So did you just
Right.
think, do you know what? There's different things. I like those topics, but there's also topics that they're just never going to discuss that I'd quite like to talk.
That's what I was thinking because a lot of that over there is a lot of heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to touch on a lot of bands and musical genres that aren't discussed.
Mm-hmm.
You might see Thompson Twins on my channel or
Mm-hmm.
a flock of seagulls, but you're never going to see that over there.
Yeah.
And that's not saying anything bad about them,
No, no, no.
but there are other people like me that want to hear about flock of seagulls or
Mm-hmm.
any of those 80s bands or Bauhaus and like I said, I've only been doing this since April. So we're just starting out, but I plan on to hit a lot of these bands, new wave bands, post punk,
Because I
uh,
think that was actually the first video that I was on with you. I mean, we'd met through Ryan.
mhm.
And I think the first video that I was really on with you was that the infamous blackout video where I was stuck in a cave.
That was the first one.
Yeah, and that was on a similar topic, wasn't it? That was very early 80s bands. We were talking about
Mm-hmm.
the second British invasion, as you called it.
Mm-hmm.
So has that always been an era for you that you just identify with? Or?
Yeah, I love that whole era.
Yeah.
And no one ever talks about it,
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
if they do, they tend to talk about bands that have maybe come a bit earlier and they're still about for it, like your Roxy
Mm-hmm.
Musics or something, rather than
Right.
as you say the newer bands, or they hit
Mm-hmm.
the really big Durans and like.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you
Duran Duran's one of the few bands that have from that era that's been able to reinvent themselves and continue.
Mm.
Well, Culture Club's still out there. There's a lot. The Fix is still out there. There are quite a few bands, you know.
Hmm. And a lot of them now touring, unfortunately, these kind of 80s review shows over here, with, you pay £40, you go at 3 in the afternoon and you sit there all day. It's a bit depressing to see them coming out and doing their hit and then leaving.
Oh no, the one that I saw was at Blossom up by Cleveland or Akron area in Ohio. Howard Jones opened,
Hmm.
and then it was the Human League.
Oh,
Uh-huh. And then it was Culture Club.
that'll do. That'll do.
And it was this was in 98.
That's
It
brilliant.
was absolutely wonderful. Human League was top notch. And Culture Club, every time I've seen, ever see like live clips or
Mhm.
anything recently, they're top notch.
Boy George
I
is a great
love
singer,
Boy.
isn't he? Yeah.
I love Boy. I
Yeah.
freaking love Culture Club. Not
Yeah.
many people are going to admit that,
No.
but I think Culture Club put out some of the best records in those. I think Color by Numbers is a 5-star record,
Do you know
and it
what?
still holds up today. The production sounds wonderful. The Steve Levine production, the
Hmm.
songs are great. It doesn't sound dated to me. Doesn't have, you know, Phil Collins type drum sounds
Yeah.
on it. It just
Yeah.
sounds very Motown, very, it's a great record. I
And
don't know.
98, you said that was. So
98.
that's interesting because they were still kind of in that period where they hadn't quite been written off yet as has-beens. Because the Human League had that revival with I think they had the number 1 record again in the UK with Tell Me When Will I See You Again. So they kind of came back. Boy George
Mhm.
was always a character, even if he wasn't in the charts. He was always in the news, being Boy
Mhm.
George. Um, and he'd had the solo career with the Crying Game and stuff that kind of kept him going,
Yeah.
which is a great cover version of the Dave Berry classic. Did any of those kind of things translate, or were they already viewed as legacy bands over in America?
I think probably in 98, not many people thought about those 80s bands anymore.
Mm,
I don't know if they're, I don't know what people consider them legacy bands because if you think about it, no one really plays that stuff on the radio. You might be able to hear it on
mm.
Sirius XM, but I can't think of any terrestrial stations really playing that stuff anymore.
Yeah, it almost goes like cheating when you're on something like Sirius, doesn't it? It's like, well, that's kind
Hmm.
of the point. You can find whatever you want. You might as well just Spotify if you're doing that.
But I will say though, the venue, I don't know how many it seated. It's a nice outdoor venue. Um, it was very heavily attended. There were a lot of people there. But Howard Jones and Human League and Culture Club, man,
Yeah.
what a lineup. It was wonderful.
Every time I see one of these revival shows listed, though, the only act that ever seems to be on all of them is Kajagoogoo, or Dollar. Dollar seem to pop up on a lot of them. Or
I didn't even know Kaja Gugu was still there. Can't be anybody left.
I
Who's
think it's one of those, the one person's cousin might still be alive. It's like when you see the Drifters in concert and they're all in their 20s, and you go, I don't think that's the original lineup somehow. I don't think that's Benny King.
when I saw Culture Club, John Moss was playing drums with them at that point.
Yeah. Wow. So
Mhm.
that's you just still pretty much vintage.
Yeah.
Do you go to many? I mean, obviously we've had the event in the past few years, but did you attend many gigs in the last decade or two, or have you kind of settled down from that and listen to more music at home, or what's your kind of listening habits?
No, I've seen a lot of shows prior to the pandemic. The
Hmm.
only thing I saw post pandemic was Alice Cooper and Ace Frehley in Dayton. But in a couple weeks, we're going to go see Elvis Costello in Dayton,
Oh,
Ohio.
oh, I don't know if you've seen the Contrarians episode on top three of 2022 so far yet, but
I
yeah,
watched part of it.
Elvis features in my picks, shall we say? Yeah,
That latest record's great.
that's the one I picked. It
Hmm.
was number 2 for me. I love the Rusty EP that he's done as well. I think Elvis is having a great renaissance. Have you listened to you picked up the Delivery Man yet? Is that
Yeah, I got it for. $2 the other day, but I
So
haven't listened to it.
is that something? Is that the kind of thing you would have picked up anyway, or is knowing that the latest Elvis was really good? Is that the kind
No,
of thing
I
that
would have
make you
picked it
go,
up anyway.
yeah?
I've never seen it in the budget bins ever, so And like I'm always looking for. I mean, if
Your
it's $2,
cheapy finds, yeah, yeah.
well, if
Why
it's two
not?
dollars,
Why
why
not?
not?
What can you
You
lose?
know,
Yeah, well, $2, I suppose. But
right?
so when you're out looking for these things,
Mhm.
do you ever have a
Yes.
list, or do you have things that you're on the out for, or do you just think that catches my eye, bang?
Mm, I never take a list. I just have it all. You know. I've talked about it before in the '90s. When CDs were still the main medium, people weren't streaming yet. People would get rid of stuff, and I would go through the cheapy bins looking for stuff that I could buy and turn around and sell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still do that, but it's not what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that were worth money in the '90s or in the early 2000s aren't worth as much. But then there are other things that are. And you don't find as many cool things in the bins anymore like you had in the '90s. A lot of that stuff just kind of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I go, I'm just going to look and I figure, being on the Contrarians or being on the show like the other day when Peter J mentioned that Katie Lang CD, I thought, well, he's given that a good review. He recommended that highly.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have normally went out and looked for Katie Lang? No,
No,
no. But I thought,
I
well, look,
would.
it's $2.
I would. I love Katie Lang.
Well,
I've got a constant craving for Katie Lang. But
there you go.
but she's Canadian, isn't she? I think she's
I
Canadian.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless them.
But normally I'm going to look for stuff that I can flip if
Hmm.
I don't already have it. But like I said, that's kind of hit and miss.
So what do you think
Um,
is caused? I mean, you mentioned the kind of dearth of really good finds with the occasional thing that you turn up. Is
mhm.
it just that everybody knows what Discogs is these days?
I don't know. I think there was a peak where people, during the vinyl resurgence, people were dumping CDs like crazy.
Hmm.
But I think we've kind of went past that a bit
Hmm.
because I don't see as much quality as material as I had before.
Hmm.
But I mean, there's still plenty of out there. Like there was that Klaatu set. What was the name of it? It's a 2 CD set. Came out in like 2000, which goes for a pretty good price on Discogs, but it's all rarities and alternate versions. Uh, it's on Bullseye. It's called, God, I can't remember. Anyway, I found that for $2. It's a 2 CD set. It was dead mint. That was like a month ago. So you never know what you're going to find.
So
But that I'm just going to keep because I didn't have that. So,
I'll be honest, I only know calling occupants of
right.
interplanetary craft because of the Carpenter's version.
Well, some people like that Carpenter's version.
I do because it's nuts, and I love
I don't
nuts.
think I got it.
Um, the
And the passengers, I got the passengers for $2. So
yeah, I mean that's the kind of
you
thing.
never see that stuff.
That's the kind of thing that you would just breeze past if you didn't realize
No,
what you were. So, I mean, are you the kind of person that would do you just rummage through, or do you crack them open and have a look at the liners and see who's on them, or
nah, I just rummage through them and,
yeah,
I'm always looking for certain things.
mm,
Like the West German Target CDs. I'm always looking for that.
you do love it.
Well, because
Literally the
I've
king of
had them.
targets. Yeah,
That's usually what I'm looking for.
yeah.
But you don't see those as much either. And I mean, I've had a whole bunch in my life,
Mm-hmm.
but you go through, we've talked about this where you go through life and you do a purge,
Mm-hmm.
when I had kids and stuff. I mean, crap, you need money for something. All of a sudden, well, oh, crap, that's going to be expensive. I better liquidate some inventory.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get on with the vinyl to CD revolution and then back the way again? Did you find, oh, I'm going to start buying CDs and get rid of my vinyl, or did you always have a
No,
combination of
kept,
both, or?
well, back in the day, I had vinyl, but never, because, when you're a kid, you don't have that much money. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I had records. I probably had 200-300 pieces. I'm just gonna guess. I had like one of those Peaches crates full of
Yeah.
records. I maybe had 2 Peaches crates full. And then when CDs came out, like, in 85, 86, I started buying stuff when I was a kid. And then in the 90s, when people started dumping records, I jumped on the bandwagon
Mm-hmm.
because I knew,
What goes
oh,
around?
you're gonna
Yeah.
all these in here that I spent hardly any on. But like I said, the dollar records back in the day are now $9, $10 records.
Yeah.
And some of these ones that I've pulled out, a lot of these REM, I mean, I could pull out anything. But some of these REM albums that were $2.50 are now, you'd ask Todd Evans or somebody or Ryan, and they'll go, "Oh, that's a $50 record
Yeah.
now."
Yeah. And
And
that
I'm going, "Well,
was
I got it for $2.50."
that's always interesting because you obviously were there and picked it up at the time
Huh?
for X amount.
Mhm.
And then years later it's a totally different market, but that's the market price. So it can still be good value for money even at 25 times what you paid for it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but
That's why I always say now's the time to buy CDs. I know
because
people may laugh and go, "Oh, Grant, I'm telling you, what goes around comes around. You mark my words. This
and you
next generation that comes around,
yeah, and
don't
you
spend all your money on vinyl when CDs are cheap and it's the same thing. It's more about the music than the medium with
yeah,
me."
I mean there was this person on eBay recently that paid I think £400 for Kate Bush's Hounds of Love because of the Stranger Things on cassette. And you
That's the
think
funniest thing.
and you think you could have got that for £5, not even 6 months ago, 3 months ago. But
Maybe I should sell my original Hounds of Love vinyl.
yeah,
I think it's the original colored vinyl pressing of it.
yeah. When I like Kate Bush, but not that much. If I was getting four
I'm
hundred
just saying.
pounds, bye, Kate. Give you a lift.
Maybe it's time to sell.
I think
Maybe
I'd
I
rip.
need to reevaluate all my vinyl and because I've got a crap load.
And do you think that was when the vinyl renaissance happened? Is that when it turned into a collector's market rather than hey, it's just cool to
Mm,
have records for a lot of people? Do you think,
mm,
or do you remember? I mean, obviously, Mo-Fi
mm,
was about in the 80s and things. I mean,
mhm.
audiophile labels have been about for 40, 50 years.
Right.
Even longer if you want to count the real great masters of cutting records. But do you think that the kind of mass audiophile market has really been the last 10, 15 years, or do you remember that being a deal
I
back
don't
in the day?
think that's really went away. I just think now everybody tends to buy vinyl. It used to
Mhm.
be like with DCC and Audio Fidelity and Steve Hoffman.
Super
Because I've been on the
audios and
Steve
stuff.
Hoffman site since 2002. Was even a member of the DCC site before that. I love Steve Hoffman. I love the Steve Hoffman forums. Um, I think it's just changed to vinyl because it used to be CDs or gold CDs
Yes,
and it
gold
went to super audio CDs.
SACDs, yeah.
Super audio CDs kind of went away, but they're still making them. I know MoFi
Mo-Fi
still
still
makes
do.
super, they still do it.
And so
Um,
do
but but it's not
analog.
quite what it was, Davey, but
Yeah.
it's just morphed into vinyl, which I think I just I don't know. I love vinyl, don't get me wrong, but you can master a CD, a super audio CD, or vinyl.
Hmm.
You could all have the same mastering and they'll sound the same.
Hmm.
It's just the medium.
Yeah.
I mean, there are these purists, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with vinyl, but you can make a CD or a super audio CD sound like vinyl. And Steve Hoffman has done it many a time
Hmm.
with many of his, releases that they've done on audio fidelity on the vinyl version and the super audio CD
Hmm.
version. I don't care what medium it's on. It just has to sound good, you
Yeah.
know?
And that has been one of the great debates that we kind of alluded to, and then briefly realized we were taking over poor Ryan's video last night about the MoFi debate that's going on at the moment,
Yeah.
where a lot of people have realized that those vinyls they've been praising for the past at least 7 or 8 years are about as analog as Is that CD over there?
Mhm.
They do
But
analog.
I'm also from that whole aspect that if it sounds good, it sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So they made a digital. I mean, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say anything. They're making a high res digital copy
So that's
of
where I
an
land on
analog
it.
source.
I'm with you. If it sounds good, I'm not flipping if I love an album anyway. So I don't care if it sounds good in my ears. Like my Big Star stuff or whatever we're talking about, my band
Right.
stuff, that's
Mhm.
staying. It doesn't matter. My Neil Young stuff doesn't matter. I might trade up for a better copy if I find, better copy. But um, a lot of people feel betrayed by the transparency aspect, and I
Well,
think,
these are hardcore people, though, Davey,
yeah,
that are
and
all worked up. Me, I'm like going, is it a good product or is it a good
mhm,
product? Is it not a good product? I don't know. There's, in a lot of these labels, I'm sure there's a lot of digital transfers. I mean, just the way it is, you know?
and there are obviously labels like Chad up at Analog Sounds,
Mm-hmm.
Analog Production, sorry, who are very transparent to the point
Mm-hmm.
where their vinyls are literally transparent for their some of their releases because they take the carbon out, so it's not got any black in or anything. And they take you through the whole process. They show you the tapes and the booklets, so you see the master tapes that they've worked with and things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all been exposed because somebody did the maths rather obviously that you can't press that many Michael Jackson LPs from the original without completely ruining the tapes. So it might have a knock-on effect for an audiophile market. But do you
Mm-hmm.
think it will have any effect for the general vinyl market? I think it can only do.
I don't think they care.
Yeah, I think the general populace of vinyl buyers are just happy to have a clean copy these days.
I mean, either you're an audiophile or you're not.
Yeah.
But there are some extreme audiophiles, and you can see all their channels on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are hardcore. And like I said, I'm not knocking anything.
No, no, no.
You have that amount of money to buy a system that is so transparent and high end. If you're spending $50,000 on your stereo, more power to you. And if you can hear it, great.
Oh,
I think that's wonderful.
if I had the
The
money,
thing is, David, if I had to listen to it, it would probably ruin it for me when I
yeah.
go home and listen to my 1979 Yamaha and my smaller Advents.
I think
It'll,
I'd suddenly realize my ears aren't as good as that because it probably wouldn't sound like $50,000 worth. But yeah,
I'd be afraid to listen to it.
yeah.
It might ruin it for me.
I think that
What you
album,
don't, what you don't know,
yeah,
just saying.
yeah. You love the one you're with.
That's right. Steven Stills. I love it.
As we were discussing last night. But there's labels like ERC, the
Uh-huh.
UK company, and the Electric Recording Company, and they
Oh yeah.
charge they charge I think £500 or sorry $500 for
Mm-hmm.
one LP. And it's titles like the White Stripes Elephant and things. So we're not talking about these great audiophile
I
records.
can't imagine Elephant would sound that great
That's
anyway.
kind of that's kind of the problem there, isn't it? There's a kind of dissonance. That's when I think you become collector rather than even audiophile. I think at that point you just have something nice for the shelf. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like some artwork rather than. I just can't imagine ever paying 500 for Elephant. I just can't do it.
But those hardcore fans, I don't think it's the general public though.
Yeah.
I think it's, I do think it's the audiophiles, the people that have expensive systems that are just absolutely get everything they can get, MoFi, analog audio fidelity, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
all those.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All the labels. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I was walking the dog today
Mm-hmm.
and I played this on my headphones.
Unsurpassed Masters 10. Yeah. Yeah.
Davey, for God's sakes,
Mhm.
does this sound good?
You don't need a MoFi to tell you that's good, do you?
You don't need MoFi to tell me that. There's Dennis on here singing. Oh, what was he? Uh, what was it? He did the Beatle track on here. Shit. You've got to hide your love away.
From
And
Party. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, It sounded like Davey, I swear to God, Dennis is right there.
Wow.
I mean, I know this is a bootleg and I don't promote bootlegs, but this is the Unsurpassed Masters. Holy mackerel. All those are just beautiful.
I think we're talking about a vintage age of audiophile and stuff. There was also a vintage
Mm-hmm.
bootlegs, wasn't there? That was that golden period, like the Unsurpassed Masters,
Mm-hmm.
where they stopped being in brown sleeves and they weren't crackle LPs pressed by nobodies onto really bad vinyl. All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, you were getting top quality products, better than you would get from Capitol for the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Um, and all of a sudden, you had all this great Brian Wilson stuff that you'd never heard before, and all this great Carl stuff.
You know what's another good point? Even, because we're talking about CDs and vinyl box sets and stuff. Beautiful thing is with CDs is that with CDs, you have all these wonderful box sets.
Mm-hmm.
They don't give vinyl the same treatment as they do for compact disc
Mm-hmm.
or, I mean, usually if you see like a vinyl box set, it's lacking something where the CD version of it has all this extra material,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I'm, I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, you're right. There
it's just
is.
a compare
There's,
contrast.
yeah, there's. It's like buying. You won't see it from this angle, but there's
Right.
my Beatles Super Deluxe editions, and on the
Yeah.
vinyl versions of those, you don't get the bonus tracks. In a lot of cases, you only get
Mm-hmm.
in Sergeant Pepper's White Album and Abbey Road. You only get the album, and then I think one disc of the outtakes, one LP.
Right.
Um,
Excellent point.
so
Yeah, they just like take the best of the
yeah.
best from those and give it to you, but you
Um,
miss out on a lot
so let it
because
be.
those Beatles deluxe editions are wonderful.
Yeah,
I think.
Giles Martin does a great job on the remixes.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big advocate of, as you are actually, so it's just as why you're here, of not remixing just for the sake of it if it still sounds good.
Right.
But the Beatles catalog hadn't been touched in what, 32 years? No, 20.
Well, don't forget George Martin remixed Help
Well,
and
and
Rubber Soul for the 1987 CDs.
well, that's what I'm
So
saying.
I
The
guess since
87,
then, yeah. So I
87,
guess you're right. Yeah.
97, well, 22, because it was 2009 for the box sets, wasn't it? Stereo and mono.
Yeah.
Apart from the odd thing like Let It Be Naked and whatnot. The Beatles Love, I loved that. That was terrific. That mashup thing that Giles did for the Cirque
Yeah,
du
I don't like
Soleil.
that.
I like
I
that
don't
as a novelty.
It's a novelty, but I don't think any of that stuff should be tampered with. I'm that much of a purist.
I'm always a
It's
fan of.
like sacred. Don't touch it. Now, Giles Martin doing remixes, as long as it doesn't replace the original
That's what I
mix.
was going. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if people start, let's say, like, let's look at Simon and Garfunkel.
Mm-hmm.
They Bob Irwin totally remixed the entire catalog
Mm-hmm.
and they reissued it on Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
So those original mixes have initially just, even though I'll give Bob, those are beautiful remixes. I will give you that. They sound great, but those still aren't the original Roy Halley mix that we did in 1966.
Yeah, the Tom
And
Wilson
now these,
productions. Yeah.
yeah, so now these new remixes have replaced the historic. I don't like that. I think that the original mixes, even though I heard that the tapes are supposed to be all shoddy, I don't know. I'm not a mastering
Yeah.
engineer. I don't have access to the vaults to see if the oxide's flaking off. I have
No.
no idea. Um, but the problem is I think both should be available.
Mm-hmm.
I worry these Giles Martin remixes are going to replace the original mixes. And there's nothing wrong with the original mix. That
Mm-hmm.
should be the, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you still get it's still the 2009 Masters when you buy them in the shops. So you're still getting those. So they haven't replaced them yet, but the two CD versions are now the standard ones for those. You there, buddy? You seem to have frozen. You okay? You back? Hello.
I see ya.
You're not moving for me, but if you can hear me, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I can hear you, but you were frozen as well. So I don't know. We're having a.
Well, do you know what I did there to check it wasn't my internet? I put on what was on YouTube, and it happens to be a YouTube video, wouldn't you know? I'm always doing my homework.
Yeah, I hear you.
So let's jump onto that then. Not about you two specifically, because we'll be doing that tomorrow.
Right.
You on your own channel, Grant Rock Warehouse, you have a combination of individual episodes which you number, and you
Mm-hmm.
also have series ongoing where you like to do kind of long running recurring segments,
Yeah.
or a mix of. Do
Mm-hmm.
you kind of do you know from the start what you want to do with those, or is it just do you wake up and go, "There's an idea"?
Usually I'll just have an idea. It'll just pop to my head and then I'll throw it out to the group. I said, I'm going to do a show on this. If anybody is interested in doing it,
Mm-hmm.
let me know. And I
And,
never know who really wants to do it.
and
I figure if they want to do it, they'll show up.
how do you gauge one-off versus series? Just the amount of interests. Just trying to figure out this person maybe only knows a little bit, or this person could really go the whole hog and seems into it.
Uh,
Because I mean,
I
Ryan,
don't
for
know. You just
example,
kind of talk about it.
Ryan's doing
Ryan
Cheap
and
Trick.
go ahead.
Sorry, I'm
Go
saying
ahead. Sorry.
Ryan's doing Cheap Trick with you tomorrow, or
Yeah.
tonight as this gets posted. So tune in for that, folks. But that's a series because you obviously knew Ryan was in it for the long haul with Cheap Trick. And you also,
Well, we talk about it before. Same with Todd when we're doing Matthew Sweet.
mm-hmm,
But usually at the end of the shows, I always throw out a topic, and it just so happens it's been a lot with Todd and a lot with Ryan.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Because
I don't know. Wasn't planned. It just kind of worked out that way.
so did you start with just here's an album I'd like to do by this
Hmm.
person, and then it turned into a series? Is that how it tends to work for you, or do you have the discussion beforehand, or are you open to either way?
I'm open to either way.
Because we started doing the Beach Boys with Love You, which is a very random place to start.
Well, why not? It
Big,
doesn't matter.
and then we're doing Sunflower,
Yeah,
um,
we'll hit them all eventually.
which is kind of scuzzy way to 77 to 70, and the 70s are very underappreciated, so that's a very cool
Hmm.
era for us to hit. Um, I thought,
Davey, I didn't even know the Beach Boys was going to be a series. It was going to be a one-off thing.
yeah, and
But then, you reach the end of the episode and everybody's going, "Wow, that was great. You guys want to do something else?" And then
mhm.
I just throw out a topic. You know,
And that's
I don't
pretty
know.
much what
There's no
happened.
real order. I know it sounds all haphazard, but the way people listen to music is haphazard too.
Yeah,
You could be listening to Beach Boys Sunflower, and then all of a sudden you'll go, "My God, I want to put on Summer Days and Summer Nights."
yeah,
That's the one. We'll talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
So, I mean, as long as you have all those programs, on a playlist or documented,
Mhm.
people can pick and choose what they want. I don't think it matters really what order, even though Cheap Trick's been going in an order. Uh, April Wine's all haphazard because April Wine, we were just going to look at two records and it grew and everyone loved it so much. We wanted to take down we want to talk about the whole catalog. So that's how those just kind of grew, you know.
Must admit, I
And
did
Lord
see.
knows there's going to be, and Davey, there's going to be tons more like that. We may just look at the third Flock of Seagulls record just for the heck of it. It
Yeah,
comes up in a conversation and everybody goes, "Yeah, hey, why don't we talk about the third Flock of Seagulls record?" And
yeah.
it could end up into a series if everybody likes it.
I ran to that series. They'll be saying, but what series have we got coming up soon? Well, let's see. We've
Uh,
got
well,
you.
tomorrow we're doing Sunflower. I've got an obscure albums number 4 discussion. That's going to be the last one because I'm not even sure who's even going to show up for that. Because I was worried that it might, you know, but I've had like 3 cancellations, so I don't have much hope for it. If anything, I'm just going to go on there and just shoot the shit by myself if that happens. But what we have
Sorry,
coming up.
Grant. If you're going to swear on this channel, you have to have an F bomb before it. So
Oh,
yeah,
fuck,
please.
shit.
Yeah, so you're going to shoot the fucking shit. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff, cool stuff in August, like ABC discussion.
Oh, good. I didn't want to say it until you did there.
No, you.
We're going to
Oh,
be doing.
That's going to be great. Who? But think about this, Davey. Who's covering ABC?
I didn't want to mention it in case, for whatever
Oh,
reason,
you can mention whatever.
it's your news. No, I don't like breaking anybody else's news.
Oh,
I'll break somebody's jaw, but not their news. I wouldn't do that either, actually. I'm a peaceful giant. But ABC, you're right. Who the hell is doing ABC on YouTube, really?
and their catalog is just incredible.
You might find a lexicon of love, but you're going to find the next few? Are you going to find
Beauty
lexicon?
Stab.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say I believe that was Todd Evans' favorite record.
And Todd loves as we've seen recently, some different Cars records and things. So Todd's always got a contrarian pick in our community means something different, doesn't it? Because it's contrarian with a big C. But I tend to think of contrarian as because it's almost for some people it's a nasty word. It's almost like you're disagreeing for the sake of it, but it really is just no. It sounds better to me. It's just what I prefer to listen to. And do you find that that's how you've gone through, or do you sometimes line up with the populist opinion, or is it a mix for you? Or
I think usually with the legacy bands, I think the populist opinion's usually correct.
mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at Cheap Trick, obviously those first four albums are incredible. They never ever attain that amount of success. I guess I'd include Cheap Trick of Budokan too. So I guess those 5 records, I mean, that's their golden period. They've never ever, achieved anything beyond that. I mean, they still have fans, they still sell records, but it's never quite like that golden period. And you might say that for Alice Cooper, like, the original Alice Cooper band. I mean, obviously, has Alice really produced anything quite as good as any of that from the original Alice Cooper
To
band?
me, it's all been downhill since Donovan was on Billion Dollar Babies.
Well, there you go. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's some other, well, Lexicon of Love. I mean, that's considered the best record, but did you ever hear Lexicon of Love 2 though?
2 from 2016.
And I like that.
Yeah.
That was great.
And that's a conscious effort to live up to what you've done before, but with a modern spin.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. But it didn't sound too, because what I can't stand is when these acts try and just do it as if time hasn't passed at all. Whereas that was a more mature take on the same kind of ideas, same kind of production, but it felt true. So you could listen to them back to back. You'd know that time had passed, but you still know it was the same band. And Martin's voice is still fantastic as well, which helps.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, you can't duplicate what you once did. Production quality change. I'm not going to say quality because I think a lot of those 1970s records sound absolutely wonderful. But they were all analog. It's hard to duplicate the tonality, the sounds of the studios from those eras, the equipment, everything now is all digital and it's kind of sterile. I mean, you can probably run some kind of filter on it. I don't know what they do. I'm not recording anything.
Yeah.
To make it sound like that, but you can never capture that moment ever again.
It's been Pro Tools to within an inch of its life. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Pro Tools is fine for what it does.
Yeah, but it's about, I suppose it's about like any technology. It's about like CGI in movies, isn't it? To do some cinema
Same
stuff.
thing.
If you use it to augment, it's fine. But when you use it as the whole thing, that's the problem.
It's too much.
And you mentioned that one of the things in the Contrarians that you're just not too keen on is the metal aspect. And I must admit,
I'm not really a metal guy.
But
I never was.
But even for me, I do love metal, but a lot of modern metal does sound so samey because of that production thing. It's as if they've got a button that just says metal on the keyboard, and they just,
No, they have a button on Pro Tools. Okay, I want to run my guitar through the button.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to run it through a 19 '69 Marshall Lead
Mhm.
100 head,
Yeah,
and it's a sampled sound,
yeah,
and it makes everyone sound the same.
yeah. And you don't need to have the equipment anymore. You don't need the gear. You just have the button. Yeah.
And people have lost that individuality. You know, Rick Nielsen, you could tell Rick Nielsen when he's just playing, but if you run Rick Nielsen through that board,
Hmm.
through that Marshall, he's going to sound just like that sampled sound. It won't sound like him anymore.
And
You
one
know.
one series, since you said you don't mind me sharing news that we're going to be doing is
Mhm.
the worst. What I don't think we had a title for it, but just the crappiest of the crap. The
I've got it on my calendar. Shitty albums with Davy.
Yeah. As long as it's not shitty
That's what
Davy
I'm
with
going to call
albums.
it.
Yeah,
It's going to be shitty dot dot dot. That's going to be the title of it.
shitty Davy with albums.
When I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a great.
Should
Is
we tell
what?
people what the first one is going to be? I've not told anybody. I've not told Ryan.
No, go ahead.
We're going to be covering as our first pick for the worst album that we could possibly think of, because you went to launch with a banger of an absolute.
That's right.
What the
Mhm.
fuck were they thinking?
Yes.
Um, we're going to be launching with Boston's 2012 effort, which I believe was called Boston's 2012 effort, because I'm fucked if I can remember the name of it. It's so fucking terrible.
I don't know what it's called either. That's what I've got down. Shitty albums with Davy, Boston,
Yeah,
2012.
the one where the girl sings a few tracks. Tom seems as if he's never been in a studio, never mind being a genius in a studio. That'll be fun, eh? That'll be fun, but it will be fun because we're going to rip them to shreds. So,
Yeah, we're just going to let it rip.
but the fun will be: can we find any buried treasure? Is there a good track in there that we can say, actually, this is just
Maybe.
production issue? Probably not in Boston, let's be honest. But is there a good track underneath all this? Is there a good vocal? Is it?
Well, if you can look, it's the same thing. Look at Cheap Trick the Doctor. Absolutely horrible record.
Mm-hmm.
Or look at Standing on the Edge. And I've talked about that before. Standing on the Edge, 1985. Supposed to be a record where Cheap Trick was going to go back and capture the magic they captured with Jack Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Douglas was in this lawsuit or this situation with Yoko Ono, got pulled from the sessions, only mixed a couple of tracks. And they brought in Tony Platt. Horrible. They got rid of Bunny's real drums. They put fake drums on it, drum machine.
Mm-hmm.
Totally ruined it. So if you listen Standing on the Edge, yeah, there's some good songs on there if you could get through the crappy production. And I mentioned before, there's a CD called The Epic Years. I think it might be volume 3 that's on Real Gone Records. That's got 2 tracks. It's got Little Sister, and I can't remember the other track, but it's got the original Jack Douglas mix.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like, oh my God. If you would have just left it alone and Jack could have finished it,
Mm-hmm.
you might have had one of those great Cheap Trick albums. It could have like picked up right where, let's say, Dream Police left off.
Yeah, because
You know what I mean?
they weren't old enough to be written off at that point. They could have had
No,
they could have had a comeback, no problem. In the end,
think about it. 1985,
yeah,
1979 wasn't that long ago when
no,
they were on top of the world.
so
And it all can change like that, Davey. It can change like that. And if you would have let Jack Douglas finish the project, it might have been way different because, man, I recommend anybody go seek that out. Little Sister on Standing on the Edge and Little Sister on that comp, two different animals.
that's fascinating.
Saying,
I'll need to
but
check it out.
production has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can ruin a song.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a great song, horrible production, and a lot of the '80s stuff didn't survive.
It's one thing I mean, as much as 80s nostalgia is so big now, I'm sorry, but some of those drum machines are just never going to sound good, no matter how long we wait. They're just not going to sound good.
I'll tell you that there's one record that I do like that I think is, and it shouldn't have aged well, but I still like it. Is Yes 90125.
Mm-hmm. Ryan loves it.
I can still listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that? Do you think it's because, and I don't know how you feel about that record, but is it because the songwriting's so good? Is it because the instrumentation's good? But there's a lot of gimmicks on there. There's a lot of Fairlight.
It's produced by my boy. I love Trevor.
Oh, it's Trevor Horn.
I
And
love
he was the
Trevor.
master of it. He
Yeah.
was the master. Because look at Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
But yes.
You can still listen to Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
That first
Lexicon of Love.
Yes, yeah, we're about to cover them.
But,
that first Frankie record, I mean, that's one of those rare albums, a bit like the Cars, where their first album sounds like a greatest hits on its own.
Mhm.
That first Frankie LP with Relax, Two Tribes, Power of Love, you think, wow. Or Grace Jones LP that he did about the same time.
uh oh
Slave to the
crap,
Rhythm was on it. I can't remember if that was the name of the album.
I know, I can see the album cover.
Yeah,
like her first 3 records were spectacular.
And Trevor was on them. So it's one of those, if you still had a good producer, you could get round it, and it has dated fine. Kate Bush is doing well for herself, as we mentioned. So
Well, Hounds of Love and all those Kate Bush records are fantastic.
So
they sound great.
It's as though something I said to who was I said this to? Ryan. If you produce it for this week, you've got a problem because it's always going to sound dated next week. You have to kind of think, would this have worked 6 months ago, 2 years ago, and then it might work 2 years' time. When something's so contemporary, it's probably going to date terribly fast.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah, I think you're right.
One of those eternal problems. However,
but those Trevor Horn records, hey.
Yeah, and right through the 90s, he was producing Seal, great records by Seal. I know he didn't do much in the US, but Robbie Williams, I mean, he was a massive star in the UK, massive star all over Europe. Trevor, right into the 2000s, was having number 1 hit singles with Tattoo and bands like that. The Russian Lesbians, as I referred to them recently when I couldn't remember their name, and I was reminded it was Tattoo.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Robbie Williams never did anything over here at all.
It doesn't deserve, as
far as I know.
He's a moron, but the production's top notch because Trevor's Trevor. But yeah. So Grant, I'm going to wrap up because we've got a good chat about music. I love this kind of stuff. Just talking shit about music. I love this stuff.
That's what we're doing.
This is bread and butter for us, isn't it? This is bread and butter, my friend. So you've mentioned a couple of things. Is there anything you want to mention that you do want people to tune in for? This will be going out tomorrow. So anything you want next?
Well, let's consult the calendar.
And remember, folks, link to Grant's Rock Warehouse in the description.
So anyway, people tune in because we are going to stream live tomorrow. Beach Boys Sunflower. I don't know how many Beach Boys fans out there, but I think someone needs to cover Sunflower.
Yeah.
And Davey, Ryan, and I have a special guest showing up for that. Yeah, they do.
Brian's back.
He might be. And I'm not going to say anything. But then Thursday, doing a Cure 4 album. We're going to look at 2 tracks from the first 4 albums. Talk about that. That's coming up. Friday Night Chat is coming up on the 29th, where, I don't know who's coming. We're just going to open it up. It's kind of like what we've been doing today, David. Just shooting the fucking shit.
Yeah, I'll plug the hell out of that.
So I never know who's really going to come on.
Every fortnight, Grant does an open forum, basically, where you can come and participate in the chat, or you can jump on camera and just meet Grant, meet the guys, meet whoever's available on a Friday night and wants to just talk music. There's usually a bit of a subject just to kind of,
Well, usually.
But then,
the last one didn't have one. This one doesn't have one, but I might throw out a topic though.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to reel people in with the subject and then just completely change it. Yeah. So that's Friday this week.
Let's see. That's really all this week, other than, and that's taking us into August, and then Todd Evans and I are going to do a show on the band Guadalcanal Diary from Georgia, which is they're not very well known now, but why not talk about them? And then this is Power Pop, which will be on August 4th, which we're going to look at. And this is the new series that just occurred to me since I love Power Pop. And
Mhm.
who's talking about it? I know I keep repeating myself, but we're just going to look at an album a month. And the first album is going to be the Raspberries' first album. And I can't think of a better album to start off with than the Raspberries,
Mhm.
other than maybe Badfinger, because they were both kind of at that beginning of that whole power pop thing, or Big Star, but we'll eventually hit those bands.
I think the Raspberries is a good one because even younger people know them because they were in that Marvel movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know,
Yeah, that's
come
a good
all
point.
the, so even that one song still resonates today.
Hmm.
Go all the way. So it's good to have
So
that.
we're doing that at the beginning of August, and right now it's just going to be a monthly thing, but you never know. People are like, crap, this is great. Let's do it. Well, the next one's going to be the Plimsouls, do the first Plimsouls album.
I will 100% be on for that. I love the Plimsouls Plus CD, the
Mhm. Yeah.
1982 one. Oh, so good.
And the other band I want to do is Phil Collins Beat. They're
Mm-hmm.
actually called The Beat, but
Yeah.
you know, because there's another UK
The
beat.
UK, the English beat.
Everybody,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
But that first Beat album, the Paul Collins band is, have
Mm.
you ever heard that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, it's
And I
so good.
heard it because I bought the wrong beat CD once. So
But it's a great power pop record.
yeah, I was like,
But
this
I'd like to
doesn't
do
like
that
the
one.
beat. But yeah.
But he was, in the same, he was in the Nerves.
Hmm.
So was Peter Case. So,
Yeah, so we're and hanging on the telephone was obviously where that comes from. So
right.
yeah, the
A lot
net.
of great stuff, and
Yeah.
no one's looking at it. So
Oh.
that's my whole thing. I'll never have a bazillion subscribers because all I'm doing are all these niche things.
Well,
So never know.
I was talking to our buddy Ryan earlier about niche stuff. I did a very obscure British horror movie, and it's got about 1,000 views. Because nobody else had done a video on it, so everybody that put it into YouTube finds my
Hmm.
video. So you just need one.
Maybe the Plimsouls will
Yeah,
find its home. I don't know.
yeah. So you never know. That's what we were saying earlier. You never know what's going to land. Sometimes you think this is a slam dunk, and it does absolutely nothing. But the main thing, as we've said, is we get to talk about the music, so we're the winners, really,
Well,
aren't we?
that's the only reason I'm doing it. I don't care if anything's going to be a hit or not.
Yeah,
I just I just want to cover this band, and hopefully we can turn on some people to it.
yeah.
Hopefully we can turn on some people to the Raspberries.
Hmm.
Now, I don't think we're going to turn on anybody to the Boston album from 2012,
No,
but
no.
that's not the idea for that.
And I won't. I mean, this is my channel, so I can talk politics. I won't be talking Eric Carmen's politics on that series either because he's a fucking twat. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know Eric Carmen's politics.
no, yeah, I didn't until
All I
I didn't
all
until
I know all I know is like in 2017 he was arrested for drunken driving
that's about the nicest thing I've heard about him for a few years.
in his Land Rover with his
Yeah.
wife or something. I don't know. And then he's disappeared. I'm
Good,
assuming he's up in Cleveland doing
good.
something. I don't know.
It's the best place for him. Somewhere else.
Yeah. So
But that takes us full circle to saying that
it does.
what we're really in it for is just good buddies talking good music and occasionally some very, very bad music, which can be just as fun sometimes.
Well, that's probably even going to be more fun because it's unlimited. There are so
Yeah.
many. Well, there's so many great bands, but boy, they've put out some real bad
Yeah.
records. And
That
these aren't even contrarian choices. These are just bad
yeah.
records.
That will be fun to just pluck the low hanging fruit from some big bands.
Hmm.
So we don't need to go obscure. There's plenty of big. Even Blondie, their last record was pretty atrocious.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a good topic.
Hey, we can
So
even.
great at one time,
Yeah. So
but you could also look at the Hunter. I mean,
yeah,
that's not all that pure.
yeah, but all right.
All
Well,
right, there you go. We
we'll
could
get
do
wrapped
this all
up.
night.
We could, and that's what every other Friday is for, folks. So head over to Grant Rock Warehouse if you haven't already. You best do so because there's already a backload of a hell of a lot of content. Considering you've been doing it since April, there's already
Yeah.
an amazing amount of content. You will find more and more, as you've heard, coming in the next days, weeks, months, and years ahead because we ain't never
Yeah.
running out of music.
Unless I die, which you never know.
Leave me your login details, and don't worry, I'll keep your link
If
alive.
I'm gonna, I'll give you the password, and you just keep going. I'll hand over the baton.
Grant, it's been a pleasure, buddy.
It's been fun,
Folks, take it easy out there, stay safe, and love and mercy. That's my sign off.
Thanks for having me.
I'll have you anytime, to quote George Harrison. So unfortunately, tis that time. Tis that time where the lights are off.
Well,
good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
night. Yeah, thanks for having me again.
This is the bit where the Zoom lady speaks, folks. I'm just gonna leave some dead air here. Seriously, I've not hit stop recording yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard any woman yet.
I'm just waiting for your reaction. I'm literally sitting just waiting to see if you'll say anything. But okay, now I'll hit stop recording now.
I bet she's not going to talk to you.